Welcome on into Full Court Cleveland right here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Nick Padone. Sam Amico, no Raf. We're giving Raf some time to mourn as the Cleveland Cavaliers have been eliminated from the NBA postseason. Sam, it's my first time getting to talk to you about what happened in that second round series against the Indiana Pacers, but how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, still kind of adjusting to life without the 24-25 Cavaliers, but great playoffs.
It's a little weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like every evening rolls around, no Cavs, especially too, like we're in this rainy portion of the year here in Northeast Ohio where it hasn't been a lot of Guardians baseball either because of rain, postponements, delays, and doubleheaders. So it has been a time to mourn our Cavaliers.
Yeah. And, Koby Altman said at his press conference, end of the season press conference, that it is difficult for him to watch the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think some Cavs fans probably feel that way too. I will say, you move on pretty quickly, and the playoffs have been great, which I'm sure we will discuss. But yeah, it's weird because you think about someone in my job, how these other writers that I just saw are moving on and getting to cover stuff, and I was kind of expecting to still be covering the Cavs from a writing standpoint now, or at least Cavs games.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely weird. It's definitely a show where we're all in mourning. We're going to get through all of it. On today's show, we're going to break down our top Cavs headlines. Obviously, Koby Altman spoke to the media. Sam was there. So we'll get you the latest of what happened there, presented by our friends at Smart Choice Windows. We're going to do our weekly Power Rank segment presented by Garage Beer, and then take a drive around the NBA, brought to you by Infinity of Beechwood and Infinity of Akron, because these NBA playoffs are truly on fire. But first, Sam, before we get into any of that, the hot trade that's out there on the streets, NBA Twitter trying to push it. I saw a couple of the national guys in terms of NBA media talking about the Mobley for Giannis trade hypothetical is the one thing that we've got to address at the start of the show. Who says no? Evan Mobley for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, the Cavs have unceremoniously bowed out of the NBA playoffs for 3 straight years. That calls into question the core 4. Can they keep this group together? What's it look like? Giannis turns 31 next season. Is this even doable with the Cavs' second apron situation? What do you make of the whole Giannis-Mobley swap?
Well, first and foremost, it's great for my website, so I hope it continues. But secondly, I think...
Give you a clip from this.
Right, yeah. Secondly, I think that there's just too much involved in that. I think that's a huge, huge swing for both teams if you do that, and it can go the wrong way. Something like that. To me, I don't think it's real. I don't think that that's a possibility. I think in every town that's been eliminated from the playoffs, they're talking about theoretical Giannis trades. So to me, look, I think Evan Mobley, obviously being a lot younger, 7 years younger, the future, he's the future of the franchise, really. So, and Giannis is the future of the franchise in Milwaukee. So I wouldn't do it because I cover Mobley and really like Mobley, and I love Giannis. Giannis is one of the greatest guys to deal with if you're a media member writing about the team. But I would not make that trade if I'm the Cavaliers, and that may sound crazy because Giannis could probably put them over the top right away. But I think that Mobley can take that next step and do the same thing next season.
I think you have people looking at it from the lens of, okay, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, if that's going to be your backcourt, Giannis could be the guy that would make them serious championship contenders. I'm with you, Sam, in the sense of I want to see Mobley take that next step. I feel like right now, Jared Allen kind of feels almost to me to be the odd man out. It's a core 4, but is it really a core 4 if one of those guys can't be on the court in a must-win, win-or-go-home Game 5 because it's a bad matchup? Like, I really think Jared Allen's days in a Cavs uniform, I don't want to call them numbered, but the leash could be growing a little bit shorter on Jared Allen, and I think that clears the way for Mobley to become the alien superstar player that is, dare I say, better than Donovan Mitchell, and that's how the Cavs get over the hump.
That could be, kind of how the Cavs view it too. And it's not to say that he could be better all around than Mitchell, but he still probably served that 1A type of role.
Right.
But if he's at that level where he's taking over games like Donovan Mitchell does, then all of a sudden you don't worry about, what's happened after 64 and 18 this year, because you are taking that next step as a team. And Koby Altman addressed that at his end of the season press conference. We still believe there's another level for Evan in the playoffs. So I think that as tough as this and disappointing as this season was for the Cavs in terms of the playoffs, you don't want to just I wouldn't make any huge splashy moves just yet. You have all the way to February, right? If you want to make a trade, that's when I would make a deal if I'm the Cavs.
Alrighty, well, straight ahead on Full Court Cleveland, Koby Altman met with the Cleveland Cavaliers media contingency. Our guy Sam was out there for that. Plus, Richard Jefferson, our old buddy, as well as Channing Frye, call out the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll tell you why when we return right here on Full Court Cleveland.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com today.
Welcome on back into Full Court Cleveland right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Nick Padone, lucky to be joined by Sam Amico. It's time for our Cavs headlines, brought to you by our friends over at Smart Choice Windows and Smart Choice Baths. If you've been thinking about upgrading your home this spring, look no further than our guys over at Smart Choice Windows and Smart Choice Bath. Smart Choice Windows running a great deal right now. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free. And it gets even better. They're also offering 0% financing for 24 months. That's 2 years. You're not going to have to worry about your windows. Or if you prefer, they also have no down payment option with monthly payments as low as $199. Some restrictions apply. If you need a bathroom upgrade, they've got the same great team at Smart Choice Baths, and they've got you covered. They are also offering $1,500 off a brand new shower or tub this month. So if you've been putting off that remodel, now's the perfect time to go for it. If you're ready for quieter, more efficient windows or a bathroom that finally works in your life, call our team. Dial 440-WINDOWS or head over to smartchoicewindows.com, smartchoicebaths.com. Schedule your free, no-pressure estimate today. Pick up the phone. Make that call. Smart Choice Windows. All right, Sam. Koby Altman addressed the media. What stood out to you the most? If you had to walk away from one thing about Koby Altman's end of season autopsy that he gave about what happened with our Cavs in the playoffs.
Well, I think he came right out and said we need to get tougher in the playoffs. And he's that to me, a lot of times GMs will talk around stuff and not really come out and say what's really the problem, and he just addressed it right away, and he said we need to get tougher. I've been watching, the rest of the playoffs, and I do look at teams like Indiana, New York, and Oklahoma City, and even Minnesota, the Final Four. I look at them, and they all, maybe their stars aren't like considered tough brute types, but they all have those type of players. I would say that the Cavs didn't have that type of player. Now, don't get me wrong, Donovan Mitchell, unbelievably mentally tough. And I just think that when I look at these other things, that's what the Cavs are lacking. But as far as Koby Altman's press conference, he came out and said we need to be tougher when it means the most. And he thinks that these experiences will help build that, and I don't doubt that. So that was the main thing that stood out. The other thing, too, Nick, how he just talked about, Darius Garland needing to get in the weight room a little bit and stuff like that. So he didn't sugarcoat anything, which was the big takeaway for me.
Okay, my big takeaway from Koby Altman cited Denver, Boston, Oklahoma City in kind of an argument, if you will, to keep the core group intact for our Cleveland Cavaliers. It sounds like Koby Altman, by citing the Nuggets, who kept Murray and Jokic together for years and years before they were finally able to crack through the ceiling and win an NBA title. Same with Boston with the pairing of Brown and Tatum. It took them some time. It took them some playoff exits before they were finally able to win a championship. Sticking with their young core, having it pay off, that was another message that Koby had referenced. It seems like in terms of the big glamorous shakeups, this might be a little bit of a boring offseason for the Cavs. I don't think, despite some fans that are done with Jared Allen for sure, and there's no way he could play game one of the regular season next year. Same with Garland. Whatever happened with that toe, get rid of him. He's not a playoff player. It sounds like the Cavs are taking a much more calculated approach to all this.
I think the Cavs' approach is much more reasoned. The one thing I will say is that, and Koby Altman's right, talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Celtics finally breaking through after 7-8 years, the Denver Nuggets with Jokic and Murray breaking through after 7 or 8 years together and winning championships. I agree with him there. I think that there's a lot to be said for familiarity, for sticking together as a group and being determined and keeping your core together. The one thing I will say about what did we see about Oklahoma City, the Celtics, and the Nuggets, they all brought in reinforcements without shaking up their core. Oklahoma City this past offseason went out, got Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. Not splashy moves, but reinforcements. The Celtics got, Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and the Nuggets, of course, went out and got Aaron Gordon, who's their best defender. So I agree with Koby Altman there, and I think that the core should and will stay together, but you've got to find different methods to help them, and how you go about doing that, it's going to be tricky because of the salary cap situation. But I think that the Cavs will be active, working around the edges of the roster this year.
Yeah, and I thought maybe, the DeAndre Hunter move was that,
Yes.
where the Celtics dumped Marcus Smart. I thought maybe that was ours. We dumped George Niang. That was our version of Marcus Smart. You bring DeAndre Hunter in. That was kind of supposed to be the reinforcements. I still just need to see more of that, I think, was the sentiment that I exited the playoffs with, because that whole thing was thrown together in the 11th hour.
Yes.
It literally happened on the day of the NBA trade deadline, and obviously in the regular season helped the Cavs a great deal. DeAndre Hunter fit like a glove, but come playoff time, when everybody tightened up a little bit, it seemed like Hunter kind of went away with the rest of the Cavs role players. So it really was a weird postseason for these Cavs. I think the fans have the right to be upset because guys just really didn't show up there against the Pacers, but I do think it's a little crazy. The last thing that I want to hit on with Koby Altman here, that people are kind of wanting to put Koby Altman on the hot seat for the postseason. Like, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, I think he did his job. He wasn't the one missing threes or not grabbing rebounds out there. I think the team, as constructed, made sense. It won 64 games. It was just when it mattered most, they didn't show up.
Well, I always try to remind myself that the word fan is short for fanatical.
Yeah.
And I think you don't want that from your ownership group. Yeah. You don't want that from your basketball operations staff. One thing that fans don't have, and I totally get this is totally understandable, is patience and perseverance. When in reality, only one team wins a championship every year. We've seen the NBA the past 7 years, it's been a different team.
Yeah. Every
year for the first time in NBA history, for 7-year stretch, a different team winning the title. So I think that's, something that Cavs fans should keep in mind. And I'm with you, Nick. I think that we need to see more of DeAndre Hunter with the team. Like you said, they had like 2 months together before, to get comfortable. So maybe next year, and this is not a shot at Max Strus because I think he's fantastic, maybe next year DeAndre Hunter's giving you more size in that starting lineup. There are things they can do with the pieces they have already.
Completely agreed. All right, speaking of fanatics and fans being fanatical, We have two loud fans, fanatical supporters of our Cleveland Cavaliers that just so happened to win 2016 NBA championships, and now they're in the national media doing great things. Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, both kind of calling out the Cavs. Richard Jefferson called out Garland, Mobley, and Hunter, all for sitting out game 2 against the Indiana Pacers. He said somebody of that group had to step up and play. Is this one of these things, Sam, in your mind, where it's kind of the toughness thing, where the fans, the media alike, have really complained and jumped on this Cavs team about not being tough enough, about not being physical enough? It's what ailed them in the first round against the New York Knicks 3 years ago. It ailed them last season against the Orlando Magic, and here we are talking about it again after another postseason loss, this time against the Pacers.
Yeah, I think, it's such a hard, and it can be a very unfair thing to call into question the severity of guys' injuries when you don't know what it is. But we do see guys playing through things in the playoffs a lot. And I think that is where, you hear, look, if it's some knucklehead like me calling them out, then that's stupid. But if it's somebody like Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye who have played in the NBA and have played at championship levels, then you do have to kind of take that into account because, they've been there. They've fought through things. I look at somebody like Mikal Bridges from the Knicks, who has not missed a game since high school, and he's now like in his, 6th or 7th year in the NBA. There are times I'm sure guys like him are really in a lot of pain. Same thing with LeBron James. He doesn't miss playoff games, right? So I think that, I don't know how severe Darius Garland's toe is. It looked pretty bad, I mean, and Evan Mobley's ankle and DeAndre Hunter's thumb. So I can't really say in a fair way what they should have done. But to hear these other guys call them out, and it wasn't just Jefferson and Channing Frye. I mean, we heard from other former players on national media outlets. It's hard to say, but maybe it does tie back to some of those questions about toughness.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how the Cavs will address that. I know I kind of said in the intro segment, Jared Allen would be, if there was a piece of the core group that you were to shake up, I think Jared is a guy to look at. And that was Channing's point. Channing Frye's point was, listen, he didn't know the severity of Garland, Hunter, and Mobley. He's like, but you're supposed to be an all-star center. Step up. If your teammates aren't out, we need more out of you. So to just have him completely disappear hurt the Cavs even more so. So obviously it's tough to disagree with either of those guys. Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, know what it takes to win an NBA title. So if they're calling into question the mental toughness of these Cavs, as is the general manager, Koby Altman, they truly might have to some looking in the mirror to do this offseason. All right, last thing for our Cavs, Sam, before we pivot a little bit. Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, both unrestricted free agents. How do you see this shaking out this summer?
It's going to be interesting with both of them. I'm not getting a real sense on what they might do. I am leaning toward both of them returning. Ty Jerome, I think his best deal is going to be from the Cavs. And I think, his best friend in life and DeAndre Hunter is on the team. That he made it clear he really liked playing with him. I think, fair or not, his market value, so to speak, may have dropped a little bit because of that Pacers series, because everybody has recency bias. But if you look at his total body of work, which the Cavs do, I think that they're going to be able to bring him back. And I think it's going to be a situation where he wants to come back. Sam Merrill, very interesting as well. The Cavs would really like him back because the money that they would spend on Sam Merrill, if they got that money free and he signed with somebody else, I don't think that they would bring in a guy who equals him in terms of basketball value.
Alrighty, thanks so much to our great friends over at Smart Choice Windows and Smart Choice Baths. Make sure to give them a call or visit their website, smartchoicewindows.com, smartchoicebaths.com. Schedule your free estimate. It's completely free to get them out there and to figure out what's going on with your windows, figure out what's going on with your bathroom. We'll be back where we got some power rank right after this.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Welcome on back into Full Court Cleveland, presented by our friends over at Garage Beer. Comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime, no frills, no bitterness, no IPA. This is just beer flavored beer. You can find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. You might want to pick up a couple of cases of garage beer if you haven't tried it. The NBA playoffs without our Cleveland Cavaliers are a whole lot easier to stomach with some garage beer. All right, Sam, we are going to power rank the best players remaining in the 2025 NBA playoffs. We got 3 slots here. Crazy to say, but it feels like after Tyrese Halliburton stole game 1 in the Garden, he's got to be somewhere on this list, right?
I would probably put him at 1 because Halliburton is single-handedly winning games. Some of these shots that he's made, that one in New York obviously just sent it to overtime, but that was just, that looked like me at Old Man Basketball. And I mean, like, in a panic, not sure what to do, turn around and shoot it. And that's the way it goes in for me, too. It'll bounce way up and be like, hey, I made it. So I think that's kind of got to be your number 1 right now, as great as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. So should I power rank them now?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Go for it. Let's do it.
I would say that Halliburton number 1. Normally, I would put Anthony Edwards in there, but he had 0 points in the 4th quarter against the Thunder in Game 1, so he's out. Number 2 to me would be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and number 3 would be Jalen Brunson, who was just absolutely amazing.
Wow. All right. Mine might surprise you a little bit, Sam. I'm still putting Anthony Edwards at 1. Okay. I know that he had 0 in the 4th quarter in Game 1. It kind of felt like he didn't care though when he met with the media afterwards. He was kind of all giggles about it. I didn't really mind the loss. Anthony Edwards, in my mind, has kind of emerged as one of the NBA stars that's appointment television. When he's on, you've got to tune in because you don't know what he's going to do. So I'll have him at number 1. My number 2 also might be a little bit of a surprise, and I'm going to go with Jalen Brunson because I get that he lost Game 1, but it was an absolutely heroic performance. Halliburton had Naismith really help pull them out of that deficit, and how good has he been against our Cavs in their first-round matchup against Milwaukee, and then now, not to discredit Halliburton because he is my 3, and I will say, Sam, there's a small piece of me buried deep down within that wants to see Halliburton's dad courtside Game 2 at MSG, put him right next to Spike Lee. I think that's the sort of drama that these conference finals need. Break John Halliburton out of whatever bar he's watching these games in currently, and we need him in Madison Square Garden pulling for his kid in full gear, full garb against the Knicks.
I'm with you there. I think that the punishment should be up by now. Just say, look, you can talk trash all you'd like to Spike Lee. Just don't go up to opposing players after the game and do it.
Yeah, and I think if there was a series and a place to put him in,
this is it.
This would be of the craziest. For sure. Remaining coaches is kind of another thing that we could power rank. Obviously, if you've made it this far, though, chances are pretty good coach.
Yeah. I mean, Danielt in Oklahoma City, they always seem to go on those major runs. The system he's put in place there is just, fantastic. Rick Carlisle, to me, I think even though they eliminated the Cavs, and that's still painful for Cavs and their fans, Rick Carlisle, you have to love the way the Pacers play. They're physical. They are, very smart with the basketball. They don't turn the ball over very often, and they're very much play as a team.
It is, man. And I think that's what drove people in Cleveland crazy about them was, like, 1-to-1, Donovan Mitchell probably is a bigger star than Tyrese Halliburton. Like, he's probably just a flat out, like, if they played one-on-one, I like Donovan Mitchell's chances one-on-one. It's just they play as a unit, and it's so frustrating when you've got guys like Naismith hitting threes. Then out of nowhere, they're bringing Thomas Bryant off the bench in Game 5, and he looks like prime Shaquille O'Neal, just throwing down dunks. Then he was shooting 3 balls, like, couldn't miss. So I do think, like, something about Carlisle's, like, team style of basketball has really annoyed teams here in the East.
Yeah, and he knows how to use all those parts. Probably nobody in the playoffs as a Cavs, watching that Cavs series drove me more nuts than Andrew Nembhard. And that's because he just has such a look of, just a casual look. And then he's burying threes. He's a great defender. And I just think that Rick Carlisle has brought that all together. So I'd probably put Carlisle at 1 as far as coaches go in the playoffs, and then Daniel at 2. And I think Chris Finch gets the edge a little bit over Tom Thibodeau.
All righty, that is our Power Rank segment presented by Garage Beer. Watch these playoffs, though. You'll have some fun. Go get some Garage Beer. Straight ahead, we're driving you around the association. What's going on in the NBA playoffs? We'll answer that when we return right here on Full Court Cleveland.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
Welcome on back into Full Court Cleveland. It's time to drive around the association, sponsored to you locally by Infinity Dealers, Infinity of Beechwood, Infinity of Akron. From the moment you walk into these beautiful dealerships, you'll experience the luxury, care, and innovation that define the Infinity brand. The knowledgeable team at Infinity is here to make every step seamless, from your test drive to long after the sale. Infinity of Beechwood, Infinity of Akron can help you discover the perfect new Infinity to match your lifestyle. Both dealerships are now under new ownership and are proudly owned by St. Ignatius grads Jamie Pilla, Ray Simchak. So go into one of their great locations in Beechwood and Akron. Visit them online, Infinity of Beechwood, infinityofakron.com. Sam, let's take a drive around the NBA's top storyline in the playoffs this week. Knicks Pacers. Obviously, Pacers win game 1 in dramatic, historic fashion, and they have a pretty big advantage in this series now, up 1-0 at Madison Square Garden, getting ready for game 2.
Yeah, now you have home court advantage if you're Indiana. And I remember I was watching the game, and they were down, 17 with like 6 minutes left? Excuse me. I remember thinking, if the Pacers can just get it to 10 with 2 minutes left, they're going to have a shot, because that's just who they are.
Yep.
Well, with 2 minutes left, they got it to 8. So I was like, okay, we've got a ball game now, because New York's going to start tightening up. And sure enough, that happened. So, the Pacers, that's their MO, is you can have a 17-point lead with 5 minutes left or whatever, and that means nothing to us. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say other than I don't want to say the Pacers are going to win this series, but I think right now they're the very clear favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think Cavs fans should be rooting for in this series? Because I think there's something to be said. If the Pacers mess around somehow and go and win the NBA title, if you're a Cavs fan, you could hang your hat on saying, hey, last year we lost to the champs. Boston was better than everybody else. This season it was Indiana. They were better than everybody else. So I think weirdly the Pacers should probably be who the Cavs fans should be cheering for in this, but I don't know. Oddly, I find myself wanting to see the Knicks be the team that gets it done. I have it in my mind that they're the better team, but it feels like night in, night out, the Pacers just find a way to win playoff basketball games.
It's very interesting. I would say probably if you're a Cavs fan, even though it's difficult because they eliminated the Cavs, the Pacers would be the team you'd root for, not just because it would be the team that, okay, they went on to win the championship, so that's who the Cavs lost to, the best team. But I just think mid-market franchise doesn't get any love nationally a little bit until now. And that's how you have to build and sustain a team. Again, Indiana is another example that Koby Altman pointed out, even though he didn't mention them, of a team that's kept their core together and managed to stay relevant and very good despite being a mid-size market team, kind of like Cleveland. So that's who I think Cavs fans should pull for. And I'm with you on the Knicks. I think that, you look at how they finished the season, which wasn't very good. They were under 500 in the last 50 games. But I think they're a team that everybody has counted out in the playoffs. I counted them out against the Pistons. And yet they keep finding ways to survive and advance. So this is what makes this series so interesting, is that the Knicks could be down 1-0, lose the first game at home, and it means nothing to them.
All right, we got to do it, Sam. Series prediction, who wins, how many games? Obviously, at the time that we're taping this, the Pacers have a 1-0 lead. I'll go first. I'm going to say Pacers in 7. The Indiana Pacers punched their ticket to the NBA championship after going to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, not being able to get the job done. Maybe this is just their year.
I think you're right. And the Knicks are just Knicks enough that I'm with you. They will win. I think that they could tie this series up and get it to a game 7 and then get game 7 at home and lose. That's just the Knicks way. And the Pacers, it's the Pacers way to go to the road, on a game 7 and win. So I'm with you. I'm going to go Pacers in 7 in that series.
All righty, let's flip things over to the Western Conference. Oklahoma City won game 1, kind of in blowout fashion, 114-88. Minnesota led by 4.5, but the second half was quite literally all Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA turned things on. Obviously, Chet Holmgren played a big piece, and Alex Caruso being the secret weapon, if you will, off the bench. Not so much of a secret anymore. After game 1, though, Sam, Anthony Edwards said, we'll figure these guys out. He wasn't worried about this at all. Game 2 on Thursday night, Minnesota Timberwolves, big underdog. I think like 8-point dog in this one.
Yeah. Well, people forget for the starters, people forget that Minnesota played pretty well on that first half and had a first half lead. So I think that they're capable, as long as Anthony Edwards does his thing, which he was unable to do in the fourth quarter of that game, which at that point the kind of avalanche for the Thunder had already happened. But Minnesota, I wouldn't rule them out. They only scored 88 points in the first game against the Golden State Warriors too, then won 4 straight. Now the Thunder are a different beast, but I wouldn't rule out Minnesota coming back to win this series. But that's just Oklahoma City's just not gotten any respect, even though they went 68-14. So maybe part of me thinks that they won't beat Minnesota. But I think, look, if you go up 2-0 and you're the Thunder, I think that's going to be hard for the Timberwolves to come back from, even though they're going to get some home games coming up.
All right, Sam, same deal for this one. I've got the Thunder in 6. I think the Thunder really are just one of those wagon teams that nobody talked about all year, but all year they quietly were just the best team in the NBA. I understand that if my prediction comes true, a Thunder Indiana Pacers NBA Finals might not be as glamorous as what the league had hoped for, but it very well could be what they're going to sign up to get right here.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best series. Would be because of the way that those teams play.
Yeah.
And Indiana's resiliency, their physical play, their ability to hit shots. They won't be deterred by these Thunder runs, because if any team can come back from a run, it's the Pacers. And we saw the Nuggets do that in game 2 against the Thunder when they were getting blown out and came back and won that game. So with Indiana's resiliency, I think that would be the best, most enjoyable finals to watch. I think personally Adam Silver loves it. I think he loves the parity, and he would love to see these smaller markets in the finals. But I'm with you, Nick, in that I don't think the networks and the network executives would like it very much. I think fans would be complaining loudly, because we always hear fans out of LA or New York or Chicago or these big markets. But if you're talking about pure NBA basketball and showing that if you build things right, you can win a championship, I think Oklahoma City and Indiana would be a fantastic matchup in the finals.
Not to mention two locations that just love hoops. I mean, you
Yeah.
talk about Indiana and their rich basketball history, and then Oklahoma City, where really all they have going for them is the Thunder and I guess the Oklahoma Sooners, like, college football, like two sports towns that just love hoops. It would be a lot of fun. Alrighty, straight ahead on Full Court Cleveland, the all-rookie teams were announced. Which guy is going to take a step up next season? Which stock should we buy in the all-rookie team? I'll ask that question to Sam when we return. Don't go anywhere. More Full Court Cleveland right here on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Infinity. Luxury experiences for those who dare to be different. Visit infinityofbeechwood.com today.
Welcome on back into Full Court Cleveland right here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Nick Padone, filling in for Raf Hernandez Brito. He's out there hanging out in Florida, Sam.
Must be rough.
Long Memorial Day weekend for Raf. He deserves it, though, man. Calling these Cavs games, calling these Guards games. Get Raf into some sunshine when we get the opportunity. I'm lucky to be joined by longtime Cleveland Cavaliers NBA journalist Sam Amico. Sam, the NBA all-rookie team was announced. Stephon Castle being kind of the headliner there. Which one of these guys, Zach Edey making the list, was also kind of humorous for some of the trolls that, really had a good time enjoying his struggles in the first round playoff series that Memphis had there. Which one of these guys do you think we see take a step next season?
I think Edey's a possibility because of his, I think that he's a great player. It just or has the potential to be a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's not there yet.
Yeah.
But I think that he's a guy who could take that next step next year. Some rookies, it just takes them a minute, but he got thrown right into the fire. And I thought he did a pretty solid job, except for, of course, in the playoffs. I worry if you're a Cavs fan, I think Ricochet from the Hawks has all the tools, the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
He to me is a guy who's very athletic and plays within himself. He never forces anything. He looked like a veteran this year. Now, did he hit his ceiling this year? That's the question. If so, well then, he's just a good starter. But I think that he has the ability to go to another level. And I see now why the Hawks made him number one. Castle, of course, obviously had a great year and is in a great situation there in San Antonio.
Stephon Castle is kind of my pick to be the guy that takes that next jump because of his situation, right? Like, you share a backcourt with De'Aaron Fox. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of pressure off of you. You kind of have the luxury of being the guy that could knock down some open shots and benefit from De'Aaron Fox's playmaking and just overall just creation abilities. And then, not to mention, that Victor Wembanyama guy is pretty good. The Spurs, though, to me, are the team that everybody's going to look at this offseason as maybe that's the Giannis destination. Maybe that's, a landing spot for KD at some point. Obviously, with Greg Popovich, stepping down or kind of just restructuring into a team president type role and not being the head coach anymore. I wonder if they try to do a flashy move in San Antonio to really capitalize on having Wemby under his rookie contract. Obviously, that's not as important in the NBA as it is in some other sports, but I think it's fascinating that you have this generational superstar in Victor Wembanyama who's showed you some really positive signs of life, and then the Spurs have done really good by him so far and getting him a really good point guard in Fox, obviously drafting well with Stephon Castle. Do they do the splashy thing and get a vet like KD or Giannis this offseason is kind of what I'll monitor out of San Antonio. And if they don't, that even makes it easier for Stephon Castle to step up and be that guy that could just take over. Yeah,
and he has that potential for sure. Castle does. It's very interesting in San Antonio because they have the number 2 overall pick, right? And the number 2 overall pick is expected to be Dylan Harper, the guard, kind of a combo guard out of Rutgers. So you already have De'Aaron Fox and Castle. Do you take this guard who's, theoretically, when you're picking at number 2, you want that guy to be a starter, right?
Yeah.
So I think that they're very much set up to move that pick and trade down or use it as part of a package for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that reality is there. And then if you all of a sudden you have, De'Aaron Fox, Castle, Antetokounmpo, and Wembanyama, I don't want to ever write about that team because of the last names, but I don't want to have to type it out. But all of a sudden, San Antonio is an instant championship contender. So that might be something that they would consider doing. I think San Antonio, if they can move out of that number 2 pick and it would land them Antetokounmpo, they would certainly make that deal.
Man, I think there's got to be a team, even if it's not the Bucks, because moving Giannis, you've really got to mull that over as an organization. And obviously, that's the type of trade where I have to imagine ownership would want some sort of say because you're moving a franchise piece like that. But man, that number 2 overall pick, I have to believe, has a lot of value. And if you're San Antonio, you don't need, a combo guard.
You probably don't.
Could be fascinating to see what they do. Maybe the draft really does start with them. But if it doesn't, I want to ask you after the break, the Dallas Mavericks, Cooper Flagg, match made in heaven or maybe not? What could they do with that number 1 overall pick? Thanks again to our friends over at Infinity. If you're in the market for safe, sleek, sophisticated, and that's what you're looking for in your new vehicle, head on over to Infinity of Beechwood and Infinity of Akron. We'll be back with more Full Court Cleveland right after this.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home by visiting pureavcorp.com.
Welcome on back into Full Court Cleveland right here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Nick Padone, filling in for Rafa Hernandez Brito. Sam Amico joining us on the program as always. We mentioned Rafa's at home in Florida. Sam, best vacation spot.
Best vacation spot? I got in
a
trouble for talking about this on the show before because I picked Wyoming and Booby laughed.
Okay.
But that's where my first job was, and but I would only go there in the summer.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in the summer. Winter,
I believe
stay away.
I believe it. You won't.
I appreciate it. Can you do every show from now on?
No chuckles out of me. No, come on, Booby. Maybe we got to get Booby out to Wyoming.
Right, yeah, that's it.
Find something for him to do out in Wyoming. All right, Sam, we teased it before we went to break. Cooper Flagg, Dallas Mavericks. It seems like his name is all but written on the card. Is there anything in your mind that could change that from Cooper Flagg going to Dallas?
Well, they are the Mavericks. They traded Luka Doncic, you know. So I don't think so. I think, that's a great situation for him. And they realize that, where he doesn't have to carry a team and could be part of the future, or big part of the future, the guy that you're really building around.
Yeah.
But he can learn from the likes of the Anthony Davises, even the Daniel Gaffords and PJ Washingtons. Those guys have a lot of playoff experience, winning experience, and have been in good situations. So, as a front court player, that will only help him being around those guys. I think they realize that. And hey, after the Doncic trade, we kind of need a face of the franchise. Somebody told me the other day as a joke, watch the Mavericks being the Mavericks who lost not only Luka Doncic but Jalen Brunson. Imagine them passing on Flagg and taking Harper or something crazy like that, and that would leave Flagg there for the Spurs.
Oh,
so goodness. I think it's probably a done situation where Flagg goes to the Mavericks, and that's a great spot for him.
In the event that they passed on him and took someone else,
they would burn down the front office. Yeah.
The internet would literally snap in half. Like the memes that would go out the night of the draft would be something to behold. I just wonder if there could be like a player, like if Jokic would be enough where they would be like, all right, for Flagg, you could, and we get Nikola Jokic, or we've spent a lot of time on this program here today talking about Giannis. Like if they believe, that defense wins championships, and that's why they made the Luka trade as a win now type deal with Anthony Davis, Kyrie, and Giannis, that kind of at least in theory should expedite the timeline for Dallas, but to me that's just way too much of a risk to pass up on what could be a generational talent in Cooper Flagg when you've got the opportunity to draft a guy like that. I think all other offers you got to hold. You know, I'm sure we would love a Giannis Antetokounmpo, but we're going to take Cooper Flagg and develop him into being our franchise.
That would be the only way you could justify it, though, if you traded that pick was to get a Giannis Antetokounmpo in return. And for the Bucks, who aren't going to trade Giannis unless he demands it or asks for it, which is interesting because they're meeting this week, Giannis and the front office, and I believe ownership, which would, of course, include Jimmy Haslam. So, yeah. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. I think that that's the only type of deal you would make, though, with Cooper Flagg. And the Bucks, you would love, if you have to trade Giannis, that would be the guy you would want is Cooper Flagg.
Alrighty, well, keep it locked on hoopswire.com for all of Sam's great NBA coverage. I'm Nick Padone. Make sure to download the Big Play Sports Network app. Keep it locked with all of your favorite shows. Sam will be back on Full Court Cleveland next week with Rafa. Until then, we'll see you.